It's now May 2015 and Stephen is back in London to visit Coventa. Last time we saw Stephen, he had just discovered that he had a potential competitor.
The initial reaction was to kind of be worried about it, I think, considering how well everything had been going. But the more I spoke to my investors, that's where they're really helpful, because they've seen all of this sort of stuff before and they were able to provide really decent advice on how best to proceed. I feel much more relaxed about that potential competitor because the money they were looking to raise, they didn't raise. I'm very confident through the legal process that I've been through that I've got my own kind of patent and IP stuff protected.
When Coventa presented the initial designs to him, they showed him 5 potential helmets. Coventa had also supplied him with what they call the cutting room floor, ideas they'd come up with without fully developing. You presented 5 designs. None of those were picked, and in the end he went for the cutting room floor. So I want to talk about that. So can you tell me what your sort of initial reaction to that was?
I was quite surprised. Initially, just because I felt the concepts were presented embodied a lot of the thinking that went on behind it. The cut room floor was there for a reason. It allows clients to often see our thinking process. That concept really stood out for me, and I thought, well, it's a shame we didn't really work that up. So when Steve came back with his feedback, kind of quite nice to see that idea coming back to the foreground.
What is it about the one you've chosen that you like?
I think it's the most considered. When we look back to the start of the process, I wanted something that was kind of beautiful in design but very considered, and that will sound massively airy-fairy to people who maybe don't go through the process of designing a product, but it's so important. It's almost scientific, it's that important.
What you're now starting to come up against is all sorts of multiple timelines. You've got different obstacles to overcome.
There's so many obstacles that are coming now. I've got to start media planning. I've got to get out to China, but before we get out to China, I've got to make sure that our 3D data is sorted. We need to identify 3 different suppliers out in China that we're going to visit, so we need to come up with an itinerary. The visa application process in itself is pretty onerous. Everything, when we go to China, we need to be prepped and go there with a decent amount of data and a decent amount of setup so that we expedite the process when we're there. Really, we can't afford much delay.
Next time I see Stephen will be when he returns from China, hopefully having engaged a manufacturing partner. It's now June 2015 and I meet Stephen in Oxford.
So I'm in the UK this time to finalise stuff for my wedding, which is in 6 weeks, or less than 5.5 weeks pretty much from today.
And when's the stag do?
Stag do is next Thursday. Conveniently placed right in the middle of the busiest spell of my life.
What was China like?
China was unbelievable. I suppose I had quite naive views of what it was going to be like, but it's unbelievably sophisticated. The best thing about going out there was that we had 3 people to meet. We met them one day after the other, and we hit the nail on the head 3 times. So it looks like we'll use those 3 partners for electronics, goggles, and for helmet out in China.
Well, that certainly seemed easy.
I'm in this critical point now where I've got a lot of time pressure. I need to put a lot of pressure on the people who are working for me. So Coventa are about 75 to 80% done. I'm hoping 2 to 3 weeks. They've done a stellar job so far, so they won't let me down. Electronics, again, they've done a brilliant job, but one of the biggest risks is that they could build these circuit boards. They might not work, and then they need to be redesigned, they need to be retooled, the parts need to be reordered. Parts can take 4 weeks to be delivered. It's getting to the point in the project where every single day is worthwhile, and we can't let anything encroach on time now. I thrive off getting a new email in the inbox or a trip to visit people to see progress. It's just the whole part of me that loves it.
It's not wearing you down then?
No, I wouldn't, not yet. Not yet. No one's missed a deadline yet, but we need products on the ship mid to late January. And if that starts to delay, then I need to pay for them to go by air freight. And there's a real risk that you could start to run into moving into next season.
Stephen heads off to get his wedding suit fitted, but not being one to miss an opportunity, he follows that up with a visit to Newbury Electronics, the firm developing the circuits for his helmet.
So this is where we are.
Yeah.
And this is round about where the date is. I would say there's a bit of slippage. There's about a week slippage.
Okay.
Is the current situation. What's your situation with regard to wanting to put this in front of people and having it in something that makes it look right when you put it in front of them?
I need to have I'm going out to the Alps in October time.
Right.
With an SLS prototype of the finished thing. It's obviously not a certified finished helmet, but it will look exactly like it.
Okay.
For which I want the finalised electronics within it working.
So if there's anything that can be done to get a helmet that's as ready as possible for testing, then it should be, I think. Let's say it takes them another couple of months to get that. That means it's more than 2 months before we even know that actually there's an issue there. I mean, they can rapid prototype, presumably. I don't know what their plan is. I suspect that's what they're doing. So they're rapid prototype for us as soon as they got their design. But what you're saying, Stephen, I think is that they haven't finished the design.
The electronics need to be integrated into the shell of the helmet. And the only way to properly test the electronics is in its final form. But the 3D designs are about 75% finished. So we need Coventa to really knuckle down the next 2 to 3 weeks to finalise those designs so that we can 3D print a rapid prototype to have the electronics in its final environment. And hopefully everything finishes at the same time and works first time.
But if they don't?
If the electronics don't work, it means that it delays the project, and the real risk is that because we're already delayed and because we're hitting the late portion of the season, the real risk is that we could completely miss the season. The magnitude of stuff going on with the project is, since coming back from China, has just been incredible. I've got my stag do on Thursday. If I'm perfectly honest, there's a large part of me that could do without it. And in terms of the wedding, it is the most exciting period in my life. But I do need to be very careful that I'm not taking the enjoyment away of getting married away from Gillian. Again, the timing of the project I couldn't really do anything about. Would I have preferred it to be last year? Yes. Could I have preferred it to be next year? Yes, but it's not practically possible.
It's now July 2015, and I'm back on Jersey to meet with an increasingly despondent Steve.
It's something that I got warned about a lot at the start, was from so many people, was that the cultural differences in dealing with the Chinese can be very, very frustrating. I wouldn't say I'm at the stage where it's very, very frustrating, but you can kind of see why people boil over the edge. We met them in February. They said it was going to take 4 months. We met them a little bit later on once we'd shared designs, and they said it was going to take 6 months, and now it's going to take 8 months. So and that looks like the realistic time frame now is 8 months, which means we missed the season. So that's frustrating. But at the same time, you kind of need to take it on the chin a bit.
Are you starting to feel the pressure?
Yeah, I think you've got this kind of rose-tinted view of it when you very first start the project, and there's a lot of work ahead of you. I don't have a co-founder, and I'm very much bouncing off shareholders, other contacts, professional advisors that I've been using. So I really lack that interaction with the co-founder, which in itself ramps up the pressure even more. Actually, maybe that's the thing that's become most apparent as I've gone on. In terms of full-time people on it, it's me, and I definitely could sometimes even just for a little bit of moral support, stuff like that, as well. Kind of bouncing off each other, different ideas. A co-founder would have been relatively advantageous, I would have said. Yeah.
Is that why we talk so much?
Yeah, exactly. Today is the 30th of July, and Gillian, my fiance, leaves to go up to Scotland for our wedding tomorrow.
A few days later, Stephen will follow Gillian to Scotland to get married. After that, he'll head off into the sunset for 3 whole weeks.
We're in Heathrow Airport, and we're going to Hong Kong for the second time. So we're gearing up for a 13-hour flight. Not only have my timescale has been brought forward quite significantly, but it also falls in the period where I have to find a manufacturing partner on this trip. Because if we don't kick off things now, I'll miss 16-17 season.
Despite only just having returned from honeymoon, Stephen is forced to leave his wife in the UK, while he heads off to China to try and sort out some of the problems that have developed.
Last time we spoke, they'd already started to delay, but not to the extent that they eventually did. What followed?
More silence followed. We got to the point where we just said, what did they say? They came back and then said, we're really sorry, but we're too busy to do your project. We met them in Munich. We had numerous conversations with them. We flew out to China especially to go and meet them. They flew down from Shanghai to come and meet us. And we had this great meeting, go through it all. We talked timelines. They were open and honest about the timelines. And then all of a sudden, we get an email saying they can't do it. I thought I just need to get back out to China now and find another manufacturing partner. There's got to be someone who wants me as a customer more than they do. That's part of the problem, I think, with being out here, is that you're told one thing and then, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, you're told something completely different.
And then the wedding went well?
Well, there was 2 days, the wedding went well, But the 2 days before the wedding, I found out that I've got a much more serious competitor than the first, or what appears to be a much more serious competitor compared to my first fears of having a competitor that turned out to not be a competitor. Receiving that information 2 days before, I was already having sleepless nights about the project anyway. But this really ramped up the pressure, and it was frustrating to have it so badly timed. But the wedding was great, and the honeymoon was good. This trip is so important for the project. There's so much pressure on timescales because of this competitor. I'm trying to rush to get to market as quickly as possible, and we haven't got our manufacturing partner sorted. So we basically need to come here. We've got a week, and we've got something like 6, 7, 8, potentially 9, 10 factory visits lined up if we need them. I'm hoping we don't, but we need to nail a manufacturing partner in the next 5 days, 5 or 6 days.
When we spoke right at the beginning of our time together, I asked you what motivated you. A bit of water's gone under the bridge, the landscape has changed significantly. If I were to ask you the same question, what is your primary motivation on this project, what would you say to me now?
It'd be to win and to deliver the best product possible to consumers.